Hello there, and welcome to Joshua Wessex with me, Josh. This is a YouTube channel where we try and use logic, facts, reasoning, and common sense to make sense of the world around us and see what's going on. And if you like this sort of thing, please do like the video, please do subscribe to see more, and feel free to write a comment about the video if you like. I think YouTube's not really pushing out my stuff anymore because I'm now talking about more taboo subjects. So please do recommend this to your friends if you do think it's interesting, and we'll get straight into it. So today we're going to be talking about communism, comrades. Reason I'm talking about communism is because in America, in New York City, they've just elected this guy as their mayor. His name is Mandami something, and essentially he ran on a communist campaign. I think he's a Muslim as well, but I don't think that's really beside the point. But essentially, what happens in America floats downstream to us, which is why we're talking about it. If you don't believe me, remember when George Floyd died from an overdose? And yet we still got footballers taking a knee, and we had people protesting during COVID. There we go. Now, just a quick backstory about New York City. New York is rubbish now. Essentially, if you go to like a shop, loads of stuff is like in locked containers. So even if you want to get like toothpaste, bread, food, things like that, you've got to go ask a member of staff to unlock it because people keep stealing stuff. In the subways, people don't stand next to the track anymore. They stand with their back to the wall because people keep getting pushed in because they've got all these mental people running around. And they've had a change where if you commit a crime in New York, what used to happen was you were released, you were in jail, and you would have a bail where you have to pay X amount to go out before your court date. They got rid of that because they thought it was unfair to criminals who couldn't afford it. So now you can commit a crime in New York, get processed, be charged, and then get released, and then you get given a court date or something. In New York, what would happen is you get all these illegal migrants coming through the southern border from Mexico, go to New York, steal loads of crap. They might get caught, they might not, but it doesn't matter because as soon as they got released, they just get all their stuff, sell it somewhere else in America, and then go back and do it again because they don't care. If they don't show up to court, they don't show up to court. It's not like they've got a fixed address they can be hunted down, is there? So that's New York City in a nutshell. And this guy is coming in saying, we're going to do some communist stuff and make it great again. So, what is communism? So, in this image, we've got two fellas here. On the far left, actually, they're both far left, aren't they? So, on the left is Karl Marx. You know him from the man inventing Marxism. And on the right is Friedrich Engels. And essentially, what communism is a system where there is no class. So, at the time they were writing this, Europe, and I'm guessing other parts of the world, were very class heavy. So what I'm saying is you'd have like the king or the emperor or whoever it is. You'd have the nobility who would inherit their roles and titles, and then you'd have like the working class. And if you were in the working class, there wasn't a lot of social mobility. So even if you were really smart and really clever, you couldn't work your way out of it. Not like today where you can make a business and make millions. Back then it was no, you kind of just had to go work and like you're thankful for what you got. So they created a system of communism where there is no class. The government controls everything. So the government would essentially be the manager of everyone. So in that sense, imagine you got a farmer and the farmer's producing potatoes. And then the government comes in and says, actually, we want you to produce wheat instead because the country needs more wheat. Now, in a capitalist system, the farmer might say, well, I'm going to get more money selling potatoes. But in a communist system, it's nope, grow wheat. And that's it. The farmer then would then give his wheat to the government. No money exchange. It's just here you go because, that's it. And then the government would give out the wheat to all the people that need it. At the same time, you could have a brain surgeon living next door to someone who works in HR or something. Very, two different levels of skill required for these jobs. But in a communist system, everyone's the same. No one's above everyone else. So they would live in similar housing. They would have access to like they'd have like the same car. It doesn't really matter what you actually did. You were the same as everyone else. So that's communism in a nutshell. Essentially, everyone working for the greater good. And as this sort of propaganda photo, you can see here, the idea is the hammer and sickle were the tools of the working class. The working class, rising up, getting rid of class systems and everyone being the same. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? It sounds really sort of magical that everyone comes together and works towards the greater good. If you know Tau and Warhammer, that's pretty much the same thing. So, where does communism really thrive? I can tell you where it thrives. Ants. That's right. The place where communism is really sort of in its prime is in an ant colony, because you've got the queen ant who's in charge of everyone, and then you've got the worker drones who are insignificant. It doesn't matter what they want or what they do, they all work for the benefit of the colony. Okay, so that one in the middle, who's sort of thrusting his thorax towards you, he could be the brain surgeon, but you wouldn't tell him out from the guy next to him who works in HR or the guy next to him who's the accountant. So that's how communism, that's it in its most primal form, I'd say. So that's communism in a nutshell. Now you're probably wondering then, well, who's actually sort of wanting communism this day and age? Because now we've got meritocracy, where if you are good, if you do have some sort of capability, you can do well in capitalist society. Well, the people that want communism are these degenerates. So this is the radical left, who I mentioned in my last video. If you've not seen it, please go check it out. But these are the people who, I'm going to be frank, hate you, want you dead, and if you don't agree with them 100%, you're nothing to them. So these are the people who are going to who want to try and convince you to give up your dreams and aspirations of, making it in life and just, be part of the greater good. Now, let's pretend for a moment these guys did convince people to, join up to the Conservative Communist Party. Whoops. Well, what would it look like when, they actually get in power? Well, Jordan Peterson, you may know him, psychologist, he actually gives a really good example of what would happen. Let's just listen.
And then when the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means, if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them, along with their families and millions of other people. So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
Thank you, Jordan. So essentially, as you can see there, what he's just saying is, so imagine for a moment, all the peace and love, libtards actually managed to get in power, and they're like, let's go ahead and let's make change. All it's going to take is some guy to turn around and go, actually, now that you've centralized all the power into one place, I'm just going to go take over now. And which is exactly what Stalin did. When Stalin got into power, he basically murdered all his political opponents, even allies who he thought might, be a problem for him. And these were all like the Bolsheviks, as Jordan said. These were the ones who were part of the Red Army back in 1917 who did overthrow the Tsars. So they're all gone now. That's it. Now, mind you, if you think about it then, in other communist countries, let's say like North Korea, for example, terrible human rights records, all the powers at the top. Kim Jong-un, he looks absolutely fine, when he walks out. He's not missing a meal, is he? But you look at the actual people, they're starving, they're having a terrible time. In China, again, that's a communist society. However, they've gone a bit more capitalist, but they're still very authoritarian. What happens there? They've got social credit scores. So if you were to be a dissident and say anything bad about the government, they could reduce your access to your bank account, reduce your access to public transport, essentially ostracize you from society because they've taken complete control. So that's the dangers of actually communists getting into power, is that because it's a human system, human systems are always fallible, it's not going to end up the way you think it is, which has happened in every single communist government. So let's say you've got the communist government in power now. Let's say they're all good people, right? Let's say they're all, the libtards from uni, right? You now have to depend on that government to make the right decisions. Otherwise, it's going to have dire consequences for you. So let's just pretend for a moment, in this society, all the smart people are capitalists because they're making money because they know how to. All the dumb people, or all the idiots who can't work on themselves because, they're weak men, they're the ones who want communism. So you get all these weak men in power and they make a bad decision. And what can happen? Well, for example, the Soviet famine, they basically were redistributing resources away from agriculture because they were trying to make the Soviet Union more industrialized. So they made the decision to take resources and manpower away from agriculture. What happened? Millions of people, 8.7 roughly, starved to death, and a lot more obviously got malnutrition until, things got sorted out. Again, they wanted to do something, silly decision, but that's it. So that's another thing you have to worry about communism. Are people at the top actually competent? Our current government, a lot of socialists in there, not very competent. I don't think communism would work for the UK. Now, another thing to consider is, you may have noticed, you may not have, there seems to be a sort of unholy alliance between the radical left and Islamists. Now, you'd find that a bit strange because Islamists are very traditional in a conservative sense. They haven't really changed anything for the last, 700, 800 years. They like family structure. They don't like LGBT. They have a very good habit of throwing those people off roofs and buildings. Don't like adultery, all that sort of thing. So you're probably wondering, well, why are those two friends? Well, the reason for that is because they're both anti-capitalistic and anti-Western. All the liberals at universities and things, they hate Western culture. And yeah, they as I said, they want to bring it down. Who better to team up with than someone else who also hates Western culture and wants to bring it down? So let's pretend for a moment that these two groups of people get into power. Okay, which, if you look at the Green Party, the deputy leader is a little pro-Palestine pussy. They can't say a bad thing. They don't talk about halal meat, even though Green Party was all about animal welfare. They don't talk about the grooming gangs because, well, Pakistani Muslim men. So let's pretend for a moment that the Green Party got into power. You've got a bunch of communist liberals and you've got the Islamists. Well, what could possibly go wrong? Well, glad you should ask. In Iran, 1979, Iranian Revolution, that exact thing happened. The coalition of opponents against the Shah dynasty, Shah, essentially, they took over. And as soon as they took over, the Islamists portion of that coalition murdered the others. So they murdered all the communists, they murdered all the socialists, and said, right, thanks for getting rid of the main target. Now you're in the way, so bye-bye. And what's happened since? Iran has become a very Sunni-dominated Islamic society where they've had terrible human rights records against women, people of other faiths, and LGBT people. So hasn't gone well, as I said. And that was all because the communists and socialists tried to get in with them. Now, you're probably thinking, Josh, that's a bit hyperbolic. That's not going to happen in the UK, is it? Well, a lot of the Labour MPs have been sort of marrying up to the Islamic vote. I think it was at West Street only got his seat by like 800 seats, or like Jess Phillips. And so that can happen. You never know. I mean, at the moment, the British police aren't actually cracking down on the Islamists, are they? And no one's really talking about the rape gangs. And you're probably thinking, okay, Josh, there's not really any communists in the UK. Guess again. So, during COVID, you guys remember COVID, don't you? Where the state locked down its citizens. The state said, you can only listen to us to get the truth. A lot of control there, wasn't there? Well, it turns out on the advisory board was a Communist Party member. So you can imagine when I was sat around the table saying, should we really be locking people down? She's there going, yes, 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 we can do much more than that. So you actually got communists working with government during probably one of the most sensitive times of our generation. And as it's coming out in the inquiries and Matt Hancock's leaked text messages, a lot of this wasn't based on science. It was just the government overexerting control. And if that's not enough for you, we've currently got Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Keir Starmer, he was a member of the Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers, so socialist. Um, Not a far stretch from communism, let's be honest. So he is pushing digital ID on the country without any sort of mandate to do that. As I mentioned, in China, they have social credit scores. So if you want to control a population, a digital ID card is going to be a very good way of doing it. So if you get someone like me saying this is crap, communism's rubbish, the state shouldn't have this much control, I could lose my access to my bank account. So that's terrible, isn't it? And another example of this is Ed Miliband, who you guys know is the energy secretary who can't eat a bacon roll. Well, his father, this came out when he was a leader, was a massive Marxist, so very big fan of Karl Marx. And then you've got Ed Miliband, who's essentially destroying our energy sector, making people buy heat pumps, which, let's be honest, are absolute trash. So, yeah, if you don't think that communists are, in actual position of power, they're already there. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover today. So communism, state controls everything. It's all for the greater good. Just think of ants. That's a communist society. Where it can go wrong, you get idiots in charge. The idiots get killed and you get bad people in charge. The bad people don't care about the greater good, they care about themselves. So rather than making everyone equal, all you've done is just put all the power into a select few at the top, and damned be good the consequences. The army, the police, they'll happily go on board with it because, well, they get more power and they get more privileges. They'll stamp out all free speech, all dissidents whatsoever, and, well, as you saw Soviet Russia, it took over 70 years before anything could be done about it. So a warning out there to anybody. I told you stay away from the radical left before, but please keep an eye on what's happening in New York. And if you get a whiff of any of that happening sort of in your area, you tell a communist you're a bastard, and stay away from them. Otherwise, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it if you do. Please subscribe to see more. And guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.